There's an epidemic that's killing older men. And what's especially terrifying is that this epidemic isn't a virus or other external factor. It's old men dying by their own hands. I'm Keith Ward with Oldpocalypse, and this isn't an easy video to make or an easy subject to examine. But given this crisis, I thought it was critical to talk to you about today. And stick around to the end because, as always, I won't just describe a problem, I'll also discuss solutions. Now, this stems from some information that came down from the National Center for Health Statistics, that's NCHS, a division of the Centers for Disease Control. Suicide is up across the board, according to preliminary data from the NCHS. Almost 50,000 people in the U.S. committed suicide in 2022, and the Wall Street Journal reported that the final count would likely be higher. That's a rate of 14.3 per 100,000 people. It's a terrible number. But the numbers are even worse, much worse, for the elderly, and especially elderly men. The journal reported that men 75 and older had the highest suicide rate last year at nearly 44 per 100,000 people, double the number for those aged 15 to 24. And the AARP reported further CDC data showing that for those over 65, suicide rose by more than 8%. These are all tragic numbers, but I want to emphasize that they are so much more than numbers. These are people who decided to choose death rather than life. Numbers can sometimes feel a bit sterile, but these are real people. People with wives and husbands and children and friends, all of whom won't ever see them again. These statistics are made up of flesh and bone, hands and feet and teeth, people who smiled and cried and laughed and held hands, who supported each other and wept together. That's what we're losing every time an older person takes their life. All that wisdom and experience snuffed out in a moment. It's heartbreaking. And we have official numbers for 2021, also from the NCHS. Thus far, the numbers I was looking at were the preliminary data from 2022, but this is from the previous year. Now, they paint a similarly bleak picture. Take a look at the graph here. Two things stood out for me on this. One, the number of older men dying by their own hand is so much larger than for women. Note the comment at the bottom. Rates for men were significantly higher than rates for women for all age groups. In fact, for those aged 55 to 74, men were 3 to 5 times more likely to commit suicide, while for adults aged 75 to 84, the rate for men was almost 8 times higher, and above 85, the rate is nearly 17 times higher. That is staggering. Now, this means that although suicide is a problem for everyone, men are at much, much greater risk. Now, the second thing that stood out to me were the two huge spikes among men, those for ages 75 to 84 and those who are 85 and older. So men age 85 and older were the most likely people in the entire U.S. to kill themselves. That is just shocking to me. And men are most likely to die by shooting themselves. The rates of suicide for older men has also skyrocketed over the past couple of decades. And this raises the question of what's causing this hideous increase. There can be many contributing factors according to the CDC. Remember, that's the Centers for Disease Control. Now, they can include declines in physical and cognitive functioning, changes in mental health, dementia, I would imagine, is probably the biggest factor here, and other causes like bereavement, losing a husband or wife, loneliness, maybe your friends are dying off, you feel isolated, and that lack of social connectedness is another major factor, as you can see here. Now, this leads to the next question. Given all of this, are there warning signs that an older person is considering suicide? Now, the answer is yes. There are definite signs, although some are more subtle than others. The most common signs of potentially suicidal intentions, according to AARP, include First, talking about being a burden or wanting to end their life. Now, if they're talking about ending their life, obviously that's a big red flag. But being a burden may not seem like it, but it is a big flag too, being a burden to others. Number 2, unusual, risky, or dangerous behavior. Number 3, a dramatic change in eating or sleeping routines. Number 4, withdrawing from activities they once loved. Number 5, giving things away even if they have no terminal diagnosis. Number 6, asking people to take care of their pets when they're gone. Number 7, physical changes, lack of energy, slow speech, kind of a group there. And finally, number 8, recent trauma, such as a breakup or job loss. Now, for many in this category, job loss is not going to be a big factor, but certainly recent trauma can be. Surgeries, falls, lots of things can cause trauma for the elderly. Now, there's no doubt that this is really dark stuff. It's not pleasant or encouraging to think about, that's for sure. But that doesn't mean that we throw up our hands and just accept things. We never do that. We do not surrender, ever. I want you to hear me now. Ever. So, what can we do then? Well, first of all, watching this video is a good start because now you're aware of the problem, or certainly probably more aware than you were before, how big it is and how severe it's getting. All right, next, get to know these warning signs of behavior. I've linked to the AARP article that has those 8 things I just discussed. I've also linked to all the other articles I reference in here. Go over those, okay? Make sure you're spending time learning about this. Many of us, for example, know the warning signs of a heart attack, and that's a great thing. You know, the idea of you feel like an elephant is sitting on your chest. There's radiating pain. Things like that can kind of give you a clue that something is going badly wrong. In the same way, though, learn about the warning signs of a senior thinking about killing themselves. It's the exact same sort of thing. If you see the warning signs, you see those things that are going to trigger your alerts, you're going to spring into action more quickly. So look for these warning signs in your parents, in your grandparents, great-grandparents, or other elderly folks you know, aunts and uncles, whoever it might be, people you know from church, people you know from a social club. If you see them, if you see these warning signs in anyone you know of a certain age, take action immediately. That is so much better than assuming that what they're going through is a phase or a temporary situation, or maybe you feel like they don't mean it. Let them know that you're ready to listen and help, even if they tell you they're not contemplating suicide. They may just be saying that because they don't want you to worry about them. This is the time to worry, okay? This is the time to take action. Now, once you do that, don't let it end there. Check up on these folks. Check up on them regularly. Just text them to say hi, call them on the phone, buy them a card at Hallmark, buy them a latte at Starbucks, stop by and deliver it, get them something from Panera. Make them feel less isolated and less alone. Let them know that you care, that they matter to you, that they are important to you. Now, another thing you should do is more controversial, but I think it's important enough to discuss here. If you know someone, an older person, especially an older man who is showing these warning signs that they're contemplating suicide, get any guns away from them if they have guns in the house. Now, this isn't a political opinion on gun control. I'm not talking about Second Amendment rights or anything else. Those are waters that I simply am not going to wade into here. This is not a political discussion. I'm simply saying that it is more dangerous for those who might be feeling suicidal to take a gun and use it on an impulse. If the guns are around, it's much easier to end your life. So get the guns away from them. It might make them angry with you. Go ahead and take their anger. Better to have them angry at you and to stay alive. Finally, let me say that if any of the things I'm talking about describes you, if you're thinking about ending it all, please listen to me. Your life has value. You are a unique person. You are much more unique than any snowflake, which is what we always talk about, being unique. You're so much more important than that. You do have people who care about you, people who love you. The world will be diminished if you end your life prematurely. I am telling you this. Even if you think there's no one left in your life, please don't do this awful thing. You know why? Because even if you think there's no one around, you can meet new people right now. You're on the internet somewhere if you're seeing this, and that means there's a group for you. There's a group for every conceivable interest out there. Do you like chess or music or traveling? Do you like Alaskan Huskies or sculpture, or basketball or whatever? There are like-minded folks who would love to meet you. So find them. Go out there and find those friends. They're waiting for you. I promise. Now, you can also reach out to me right here, right now on Old Apocalypse, right on this channel. Leave a comment for me, and I promise I'll respond to you if you're in that situation. Just keep going. Listen to me, friend. Keep fighting. Start a new chapter in your life. You don't have to continue on where you are now. Things can and will get better. So, I want to encourage everyone watching this to work with me on this. Let's keep an eye out for the elderly among us, for those who are showing warning signs, for those who you're not sure about, but may be seeming to wonder what life is all about. Let's check in on them. Let's encourage them. Let's all try to do our part to halt this dreadful epidemic. Thank you, my friends.